Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Golden Butterflies Film Studio channel. I loved this show, Blackbird. It's based actually on a true story, and the Critics' Choice Awards just passed, and Paul Walter Hauser actually won for his role portraying Larry Hall. He was the Best Supporting Actor in a limited series made for television. He did a phenomenal job playing Larry Hall, who was a serial killer. And James Keene, or Jimmy as he's more informally known, he wrote a memoir. And again, like I said, based on a true story, his 2010 memoir entitled In with the Devil, which received a lot of critical acclaim, that's what they based the show Blackbird on. So Jimmy Keene, he was a drug dealer who was the son of a police officer. And he was very charming, he was very arrogant, and he was like a football star, and everyone knew him. So he got busted selling drugs, got sent, upstate to prison. And because he was the son of a former cop, I'm assuming that that's why the FBI approached him to go undercover as an inmate in one of the nation's toughest maximum security prisons for the criminally insane to help them solve a case of a serial killer who was incarcerated at that time, named Larry Hall. So Larry Hall was he was in prison for kidnapping a 15-year-old girl who was reported missing in 1993. Her name was Jessica Roach. And the real Larry Hall was born in Wabash, Indiana, along with his twin brother Gary. And despite them being identical twins, Larry was one of the two who had a much lower IQ. He had a speech impediment, and he was often bullied by his peers in school. So just the complete opposite of Jimmy Keene in terms of personality. So while this wasn't a main focus of the show, but Larry Hall was also suspected of several crimes in his hometown of Wabash, Indiana, during his teenage years. So he was suspected of committing arson and vandalism, as well as other serious crimes involving the abduction of two young girls in Michigan and Indiana. So it was only when the remains of Jessica Roach were discovered in 1993 that Larry started to come under suspicion from local police. So, as the series depicted, and of course backed up by Jimmy Keene's own memoir, Larry Hall became fascinated with Civil War and Revolutionary War reenactments. And so he grew out his sideburns in order to match the look of that era. And from the late 80s to the early 90s, Larry Hall traveled across the Midwest to participate in these Civil War reenactments. So they're really well known in those, kind of circles. And it was during this time that he was suspected to have been responsible for the disappearance and possible murders of several young women. So right here we have Ray Liotta, who played Jimmy Keene's father. So he was the cop, and of course Jimmy Keene was the drug dealing son. And of course, like I said, this was based on a true story, but this was one of Ray's last roles. So rest in peace, Ray. He was, of course, most known for his role in Goodfellas, and he's been an actor for a really long time. So I'm so glad to see that he was in this film as well before he left us. So after Jimmy discussed the deal that the FBI was offering to him with his father, he accepted, and he was trying to get the truth out of Larry Hall as to what happened with all these young women. And the real Larry Hall was as frustrating as he was portrayed in Blackbird. So he would come up with all these really like elaborate fake confessions, and he was just a compulsive liar. So that was really difficult in order to get the truth out. And so even after he confessed to Jimmy Keene about what happened with Jessica Roach, which he was eventually convicted for, he tried to backtrack, and he tried to basically say like, oh, I didn't do it, I was just joking. However, Jimmy Keene was on board as an undercover agent with the FBI, and the deal really did take place in real life as well as in the series. And he successfully gained Larry Hall's trust and was able to ascertain that, without a doubt, he murdered Jessica Roach, despite Larry Hall appealing his sentence many times. So, in his memoir, Jimmy Keene describes the process of breaking down the ice with Larry Hall. He says, I was right across the table from him for at least 15 minutes, and he never said a word, never so much as made eye contact. And then after the 15 minutes was done, all he said was, I'll see you later, James, and walked out. And so that same thing happened the next day and the next day. And if you guys know anything about like therapy or therapists, they'll use the same tactic where you have to, spend time with people in order to gain their trust. And it might take days, weeks, months. It just depends on the individual. But eventually a breakthrough happens, and that's when Hall started talking. So according to his memoir again, Jimmy Keene was additionally tasked with finding out about the murder of another missing young woman. Her name was Trisha Rattler. And Keene described that he was able to get Hall to admit burying Rattler's body way out in the country. So in the series, we see how Hall just eerily describes, he was so creepy, you guys. Like, this show was so good, but and that's why I think that he won the Critics' Choice Awards. He really embodied Larry Hall. So Paul did a wonderful job as an actor, but yeah, he gave really eerie details as to, well, actually, I don't want to spoil it for you guys. So I'll just say that he was really good in the role. This was based on a true story, but I definitely want you to watch it in regards to just the details of, where the young women were buried, how they were buried, and how, Jimmy Dean basically earned his freedom. But the good news is that the FBI did not waste their time, and Jimmy Keene did not waste his time. They eventually found out some of the information that they were looking for. They didn't get to find all of it, but in the end, I felt like the show was just so good. The ending was really good. There were so many things that could have happened differently, but necessarily, they didn't. But I will say, just to put your mind at ease, because mine was kind of, sketchy myself. The real Larry Hall is still locked up, which is where he belongs, because they estimate that it could have been up to 40 young women, not 4, but 40 young women that this man had captured, kidnapped, tortured, raped, and killed. So again, I want you guys to watch it for yourself and, get all the details. I don't want to completely spoil it, but I did want to give you that peace of mind that the real serial killer, Larry Hall, is continuously imprisoned in a facility in North Carolina, and he's serving a life sentence with no chance of parole. So you guys can sleep a little bit easier for tonight, and please let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. I love true crime and like mysteries. It's my favorite genre, so I'll definitely be covering a lot more of those. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I will talk with you later. Take it easy, golden butterflies. Bye.